Hello and welcome back to Soul Search Sunday with Johnny Tiger. The date is November 22nd, 2020. We're almost a full month before Christmas. Is there some special meaning to that? No, just make me feel good to think of it. It doesn't really have any special meaning, doesn't really have any reason for me to bring that up. It's just cool. And there's nothing wrong with something just being cool. I remember this one time I walked into the martial arts studio. One of the other sensei was sitting there in the back office, and as I went in there to get into my uniform, or sorry, for the martial artists out there, into my gi, the sensei said to me, "Hey Johnny," he said, "how are you doing today?" And I said, "Oh, I'm not too good. It's been kind of stressful day. It's a long day, The work is kind of sucked, and I hate traveling in this weather." And then he cut me off. He said, "Dude, okay, just say fine, thank you, and then we can both go on our business. I didn't really want to hear about your day." And I remember this moment of chagrin I felt, a moment of embarrassment, moment of anger, a moment of confusion, and a little bit of humiliation too. I felt like, well, why did you ask if you didn't want to know? And how can you be so rude? But then I took a deep breath and I calmed myself down and I realized, Johnny, you've done it again. Done what? Well, for my childhood, most of my early life, I grew up in a family where things were very literal. Things were very cut and dry, black and white. You do this, you get awarded. You do that, you get punished. You say this, you get a pat on the head. You say that, you get a slap in the face. So I grew up as a very literal child. If you say, "I'll talk to you later," I tended to expect that we'll talk later. If you say, "See you soon," then I tended to expect that we will see each other soon. I remember I was like 5 years old, and this one time, my father got angry at me. Still remember this happened in his office. I can't remember the circumstances, but my father got so mad at me that he said, "Get out of my sight. I don't ever want to see you again. How I don't have a son like you. I don't have a stupid son like you." And without a second word, I stood up from that office chair and I walked out of the office. I started to walk out of that office, and my dad, he said, "Come back here. Where are you going?" I said, "You told me to get out of here. You say you don't have a son like me." And he said, "So you are going to be spiteful and just walk out? You think you can do that?" And I said, "I'm not being spiteful. I'm just doing what you say." And this is the thing. I really didn't do it to be spiteful. I just, okay. You tell me to get out, go away, and you say you don't ever want to see me again. That's fine. I'm going. That's what you want. I'm going. That's how literal a child I was. Like, my brothers and sisters, they knew better. My brothers and sisters, if my dad said something like that, they would get down and hug him around the leg and, Dad, we love you. Dad, don't say that. Dad, stuff like that. But somehow that personality just wasn't in me. I was very, very literal growing up. I got into a lot of trouble being that literal of a person growing up. For me, a promise was a promise. If you told me 10 o'clock, it was 10 o'clock. 10:01, not good enough. It had to be 10 o'clock. If you say that you were going to do this, then I expect you to do this. If you told me to go do that, then I expect that I will go do that. Uh, it was very black and white with me, and this was a result of me growing up having a lot of conflict with a lot of people. In high school, especially in high school, a lot of time I got into fist fights and brawls because of a little something someone said, and maybe said at the wrong tone or the wrong way, and I would fly off the handle, and I thought I would give me a justification to punch someone out. And as I grew up, as I got older, and start to these problems started to carry over with other people in my life, at work, at university, with professors, with advisors, with government workers. I started to sit back and take a look at the world around me, and I realized that we no longer live in a world where everything has to make sense, where everything needs to be literal. In fact, just last week, I saw this interesting statistic online that said for most of us, about 90% of what we say or do every day don't make a lot of sense. 90%, that's a big number. 90% of what we say every day don't really have a meaning, don't is not really that important, don't really make sense. So I don't know about you, but I had to come to this slow realization that if the majority of the time people around me are going to say things that don't make sense, say things that are not perfect, say things that are flawed, and if I try to take everything seriously, then I would condemn my own life to be very unhappy and very, very sad. Such as this situation at the martial arts studio. The sensei had a lot of paperwork in front of him, so I should have known. I was old enough to know, I was mature enough to know that when someone say, "Hey, dude, how's your day?" There's nothing behind it. Most people don't say this and really want to hear that you had issues at work and so on and so on. Most people say this to be polite, just to be friendly, to acknowledge that you walk into the room. So the fact that he was honest enough to cut me off and say, "Hey, just say you're fine and we can both go on with our day," was that a little bit rude? Yes, it was. But it was an honest, very honest rudeness, and probably a bit of a slap in the face that I needed at that time to snap me out of the being involved with how bad I felt that day, how much I just needed someone to talk to, and how I was so ready to unburden my uh, negative energy onto someone else. Did I stop and ask how he was feeling? No. Did I stop to ask how he was doing with his paperwork? No. He asked me how I was doing, and I started to go into this life story about how crummy my day was. So in the end, who was the rude one? Maybe I was. Nowadays on Facebook, we see a lot of these ancient proverbs. I post a lot of them myself. Chinese proverbs that was written or said thousands of years ago. And we see a lot of these inspirational quotes being shared again and again on Facebook. And a lot of people, myself included sometimes, when they look at these quotes, these proverbs, they'll say, oh, that's pretty good, but it doesn't work because blah blah blah. It's wrong because blah blah blah. I don't agree with it because blah blah blah. And honestly, even though, like I said, I do that sometimes, I will overanalyze things sometimes. I try to catch myself at it and not to do that because most likely the people who said these things, they're not in this world now. The people who said these things lived in a different time than we do now. So obviously, there's going to be something wrong with these quotes. There's going to be something off with these proverbs. Can you say that everything you say is 100% accurate? I know I can't. But I think sometimes it is more important to take things in the spirit in which they're offered. Look at the broader meaning of what they're talking about. Let's use a simple example, world peace. Let's say someone is praying for world peace. I can look at it one of two ways. Well, actually, there's a lot more ways to look at it, but let's just say I can look at it one of two ways. I can go up to the person and say, you know, world peace is actually not a good thing because if the world's at peace and not enough people are going to die and we're going to be overpopulated and in 50 years the earth is going to be annihilated, we are going to go extinct, the planet's going to use up its resources because of your world peace. I can go into that and I can be very scientific, very persuasive. Or I can think that is really nice because this person is praying for people to be safe. That's it. Stop right there. Don't overthink it. Don't overanalyze it. Don't try to argue it. And the world will be a better place overall. There are a lot of old Chinese quotes and sayings addressing what I'm talking about today. One of them says, you'll be an unhappy person if you insist on trying to find a bone in every egg. Another one said, your view will be very narrow if you insist on going to the tip of the bull's horn. How about this one? This one is from the Buddha himself, and one of the ones that I think is my favorite. The Buddha said, at first I sought to achieve peace, means I had to reach understanding. But in the end, I realized that all I needed was to reach acceptance. And talk about understanding. Some people say, well, okay, now let's say, okay, let's not overanalyze things, but sometimes I like to question things, and just because I like to understand them. Isn't understanding good? Isn't that how we build our society by more knowledge, more understanding? Yes, that is true. It is good to understand, it is good to learn. However, again, we go back and look at that statistic 90% of things people say every day don't mean anything. So if you insist on trying to understand people when a majority of what they say going to be nonsense, then you are trying to understand nonsense. And while having knowledge, having understanding will help uh, you become more wise and intelligent, it doesn't necessarily make you a happy person. I know that from personal experience. I used to love playing online role-playing fantasy games. You guys know what I'm talking about, like EverQuest, like Warcraft, the kind of game where you generate, you choose a character. You want to be a warrior, you want to be a mage, you want to be a outlaw, a rogue, a thief, a cleric, and then you choose a name for your character, and then you go into this huge online world of uh, swords and dragons and sorceries, and you try to make the best of it. Try to become a hero, try to become the most evil villain, whatever you want. You try to. Now, I used to be so much into games like that when I was in my early 20s until I made the mistake of volunteering and then later getting paid to help develop these games. I started learning how things work. I started learning how to generate characters. I started learning how monsters were made, how to make a dragon, how to make this dragon breathe fire, how to make that dragon breathe lightning, how to make this giant being able to wear metal armor, and how to make that giant being scared of water. I started to understand how the whole game worked, and that took all the fun out of it. I no longer wanted to play these games anymore because there's no fun. When I was a hero going into that dragon's cave to slay that dragon, in my head I would be thinking of this glorious battle that my hero is so tall and powerful that I'm going to go in there and slay this big scary dragon, and I'm going to get all the treasures and yada yada yada. After understanding the game, after learning how things work, before going to that cave, I was thinking, okay, so this cave is curved to the right, so that dragon can only come out this way because that's how the scripting language dictated. There's only so many things it can do, and if it breathes fire, then it can't do other things. It won't be able to jump while it's breathing fire because the code doesn't allow it. And if I'm wearing this armor, that means that the programming language was dictate that I can't use that weapon very well, so I should use this weapon, and I should do this while that dragon's doing that because that's how the scripting work. I was understanding while trying to analyze and trying to decode everything I saw in the game. It took all the fun out of it. Another example, when I was a teenager, I loved going to karaoke. I loved performing. I loved playing music. Uh, I love uh, spend my free time playing music. And even songs that I didn't sound very good on, I would sing them, play them if I liked the song. After being a professional, semi-professional musician for the past 20 years, I don't even like to go out of my way to do karaoke that much anymore. I don't want to play songs unless I'm practicing for a recording or for a concert, unless I'm going to get paid or unless I can benefit from it. If it's a song that I know I don't sound very good on, I'm not going to bother with it. If it's just karaoke, then I'm thinking, why do I want to do karaoke when I get paid? So when people pay me to sing, to play, why do I want to go out there and do it for free? When I listen to a song, I no longer pay attention to how good or how bad it sounds. I'm in my head, I'm taking the song apart. I'm saying this part is a guitar, and if I want to play this, I got to do this, and that part is a keyboard, and I can do it in this key, or I can do this part better, and that part is on the saxophone, and I can play that part not exactly like that, but I can do it this way, and that will work out the same. I'm not listening to the song. I'm listening to every component of the song because I now understand how songs are put together, how recordings work, how music work, how performance work. I can go on and on and on, including learning to write novels and so on. So often, and this works in cooking too. Sometimes if you know how to cook really well, you don't enjoy the things that you cook as much because you know how disgusting they look when they were raw. Um, so with greater understanding, yes, it comes more wisdom, more knowledge, but it also comes with more unhappiness and more uh, uh, emptiness, I shall say. It's hard to see the magic around you when you know how that magic is generated. A few years ago, I called my good friend Wayne on the phone. I said, Wayne, what are you up to? Wayne said, nothing. I'm sitting here practicing not thinking. At the time, I said, what? How can you practice not thinking? Like, that doesn't make sense. We our brain think. No matter if we're doing something, the only time we don't think is if we're passed out or if we're sleeping. How can you how can you not think? And Wayne said, it's not easy, but that's why I'm practicing it. Because if you can achieve the state where you can be awake and alert but not think, you will have a much happier life. I think after all these years, I finally started to understand what he was telling me at the time. Thank you for checking out today's Soul Search Sunday. We'll be back again tomorrow for Music Monday. For now, have a good night.